Shanghai, a city of teeming millions, eager to embrace every aspect of the modern world. It's a city to dodge the crowds, beat the traffic, keep your cool. And if he can manage that, Lewis Hamilton might just finish this Shanghai weekend as Formula One world champion. Two races to go. At this stage last year, Lewis Hamilton had a 17-point World Championship lead, and still the title slipped away. Today, he leads by just 5 points. Felipe Massa and Ferrari are in hot pursuit. It's going to be a weekend of huge tension for Hamilton, for McLaren, and for everyone involved in the World Championship battle. So welcome to the Shanghai International Circuit. Warm, dry, sunny conditions for qualifying for tomorrow's Grand Prix of China. And we stood here in this pit lane a year ago and assumed that Lewis Hamilton was about to clinch the World Championship title. And certainly this weekend, he's got another chance to clinch the greatest prize in the sport. But Mark Blundell, after we saw the mistakes and the misjudgments from Lewis in Japan last weekend, that title seems a long, long way away.
It does indeed, and I think it's a big surprise for everybody just to see how Lewis was going into turn one in Japan, and from that point on he's basically blown it. But I think he's had a week to think about things. He's certainly had a lot of pressure on him from the media, and I'm sure that he's going to try and make amends.
And he comes here in a sort of confident, almost defiant sort of mood. His morale is strong, but the pressure on this team to get it absolutely right this weekend is huge.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure in the system here, and I think the team, more than anybody, know what it takes to win World Championships, because many of these people have been here for World Championships won by other drivers. And maybe there's a little bit of frustration at seeing some mistakes made, especially after 12 months ago when we saw the mistake made at this very circuit.
Well, let's give you an exact reminder of the arithmetic involved. 2 races left and Lewis Hamilton leads the World Championship by 5 points. The stewards having awarded an extra point to Massa with their controversial decision after Japan. More on that in a moment. But it means that a win for Hamilton tomorrow with Massa no better than 5th, and Lewis takes the title. There are other permutations that could resolve it also this weekend. Anything less than that, though, we're set for a decider in Brazil. And just like Raikkonen last year, Robert Kubica, 12 points back, is also waiting to pounce if the 2 title contenders get it wrong. Hamilton certainly got it wrong in Japan, but this is how he sees the title battle.
It's always easy when you're behind in a race or in a championship to chase the guy in front, because you have like a target. You can see your target and you're chasing that. When you're in the lead, it's definitely harder to lead a race or a championship. But I would say you know, the championship's any of ours, and he's got to keep up with me, and he's got to overtake me, and I'm not going to make that easy for him.
But now he comes here to China, hearing that Alonso is going to support Massa if the situation requires. He's also hearing reported comments from other drivers that maybe Hamilton has become a little bit of a danger out there on the track. It's almost as if everyone is ganging up on him.
I think some of this comes from just the way that he is on the circuit. He's aggressive. He makes moves where some people wouldn't risk it. But at the end of the day, you can't take that away from him, Steve. You've got to understand that Lewis Hamilton is a special individual and a special driver, and that forceful attack mode has been the way that he's come through the ranks of motorsport. I don't think the other guys can really comment on it. I mean, if there was an opportunity and they didn't take it, I think they'd have pressure on them to make sure that the next time they did. Lewis doesn't do second opportunities. He takes the first one and makes it count. most times.
Yes, we've certainly seen a lot of evidence over the last 2 years of Hamilton's unique ability behind the wheel, but also during the course of this last season, as Ted Kravitz reports, we've also seen evidence that maybe he's not quite World Championship material just yet.
Mistakes and thus make them crimes. Unfortunately, Confucius also says that you must study the past if you would define the future. And that's 4 driving mistakes now for the season that have trimmed down Hamilton's championship lead. The last one at Fuji has had many at McLaren considering the principle of red mist.
When you put on the back foot almost instantly, your body goes into defense and you're not thinking about anything else, no one behind, you're just thinking about what's your next move. And it's going so quickly that you don't have a lot of time to think about it. So I was in the slipstream. Shoot, what do? Do I go inside or do I stay behind? And I'm a racing driver and I want to take that spot back. And sometimes that catches me out, but a part of that is my character. And sometimes it pulls off. Probably 4 times out of 5 it would work. Unfortunately, it didn't that time, but. No, I don't find there's a red mist. I think it's more you're relaxed and you're just in your element.
No, the instructions were clear. Let's make sure we concentrate on the championship. We don't have to win this race to do it.
Was it disappointing then that his racer's instinct took over and he didn't think like that?
Well, I think it's disappointing when you don't maximise the points that are available on a day. But, we're a team and collectively we didn't have a great weekend on either car. We've got 2 races to go. We're leading the Drivers' World Championship by 5 points, so we're in a good position to win. In
those circumstances, it would have just been easier just to take a little step back. But the fact is, I didn't, and I take a lesson from that, and I move on for the next race.
We know what he's got to do. He knows what he's got to do. I don't think he needs a lot of instruction from us. We've just got to take it steady. But on the other hand, this is motor racing. You can't be too conservative. Otherwise, you back away from your game and you don't perform.
If I said in Singapore that I would be 5 points ahead going into China, I would have been well happy. So I feel it's a kind of a new, fresh beginning, a second chance, and we still have 2 races to really get the job done.
But that also gives Ferrari 2 more races to take advantage of their faster car. They felt Felipe Massa could have won in Japan had Hamilton just given the Brazilian a little more room in the middle of the corner.
That's Lewis. I mean, that's his personality. So to be aggressive and always over confident. I mean, that's true. But that's his personality. Doesn't mean he cannot be good, he cannot be competitive, he cannot be strong because of that. Everybody knows that he's very strong, and these things, many races, made him a lot of points.
I don't have to win in the first corner, and if I am second, it's not the end of the world. But if we can win, that'd be fantastic. If we can win the race, but most importantly, get some points.
Well, Lewis Hamilton starting to talk conservatively yet again, and a man whose drivers have gone on to 7 World Championships is Patrick Head. Patrick, what do you think of the job Lewis is doing in this championship?
Well, he's doing a great job. I mean, obviously leading it at the moment, but there are 2 of them really in there, I think, with Felipe and Lewis, and they've both had good races and bad races, and races where maybe it's easier to criticise, and races where you gasp in awe at their achievement. So I think it's a very exciting championship, and I think Lewis is doing a very good job.
If he was your driver, what would your instructions be to him about what to do in this race?
Well, I think drivers have seldom ever followed my instructions, but I'm sure, I mean, Lewis has said it, but maybe in the last race he didn't quite do it. He's an attacking driver, and his instinct is to go for the win. And I think it's a pity if people criticise him for that. But now it's last 2 races of the championship. He needs a cool head, and he needs to be keep all the bits and pieces on his car and not have bumps in the first corner. But we've seen him do classic flag-to-flag drives, and I think he could well do that.
Okay, thanks, Patrick.
Respect there for Lewis Hamilton from Patrick here, but we also a moment ago heard a certain amount of frustration from Martin Whitmarsh that Lewis clearly didn't follow instructions in Japan.
I think what Martin said, he didn't maximise the points that were available on the day, and that's a situation that will be sitting with the McLaren team. The other thing is, even Patrick Head saying, you keep the car in one piece. You've got to remember in Japan he was very, very fortunate that car was in one piece, because the move that he made going into turn 1 could have been the that it ended in tears, and he could have been nowhere near getting the car around the first corner. I think at the end of it all, it's Lewis just got to calm down, just got to temper that aggression slightly.
But the one thing out of Lewis's control, and seemingly out of everyone's control at the moment, is the rather unpredictable nature of the stewards' decisions. And they ruled after Japan the Bourdais' exit of the pit lane was illegal. He was penalised. Massa picked up an extra point. You were clearly frustrated when you saw this in Japan. Have you since then been able to make any further sense of it?
You know, I've seen other angles, I've seen more footage. I've thought about this more and more. I still haven't had anybody turn up and talk to me about the situation with a different viewpoint. And I have to say, as a former driver, my viewpoint is Sébastien Bourdais did nothing wrong whatsoever. Anybody with any experience will tell you the same thing. And I think it's wrong. The decision is wrong. He should not have had a penalty, full stop.
Well, we have asked the FIA for the all-important clarification on this. None is forthcoming at the moment, but we may get some good news from them during the course of our race build-up tomorrow. But in the meantime, let's take a closer look at this Shanghai International Circuit. It was the subject of a huge construction project, and the first race was held here back in 2004. Martin Brundle with Nick Heidfeld looks at a combination of fast straights and high-speed corners.
For this week's Track Guide, we've literally dragged Nick Heidfeld out of his racing car to come and have a look at the track with us. Nick, what do you think about this Chinese Grand Prix circuit?
I quite like it. Actually, it's a modern circuit with a lot of runoff areas, but it still has a feel to it like it's not new. It's more like an old track. That's at least what I felt when I walked it the first time a couple of years ago.
Now, we're down at turn 1. And Fernando Alonso said you almost have to guess the braking and turn-in point here. Can you understand what he means by that?
Yeah, it's a bit blind, not only turn 1, but turn 2 as well, that we will see later. You don't have a lot of points that you can refer to. It's a pretty difficult corner. You arrive with nearly 200 miles per hour. And then the difficult part is that you brake into the corner. It's not like a normal straightforward one where you have straight line braking, turn in, and then exit. It's a very, very long corner, which makes it difficult, but obviously interesting as well.
Let's talk our way around the racetrack. Down at turn 5, the hairpin, the right-hand hairpin, overtaking place?
It is possible, but pretty difficult. We have a low-speed second corner preceding that, but the exit is relatively long. You already feel the effect of downforce there, and the straight is not actually long enough to have a good toe.
And the high-speed corners of 6 and 7, full throttle, or you just...
Yeah, it's just about full throttle. I think this year with a good balance in the car, it will be. Last year sometimes the traction control kicked in, so that will be quite a lot of fun, and that's actually one of the nicest sections there.
Then it gets quite slow and tight, and then the very long right onto the back straight. How does that feel?
It feels okay in the beginning, but similar to turn 1, again, you put a huge amount of stress on the tires. That's also the reason why we have the hardest Bridgestones here. And the front left is stressed so hard that you will be happy to see the graining finally disappearing.
Now let's put ourselves 2/3 the way down the main back straight and think back to Fuji last weekend when the Ferrari was catching your teammate, for example, in the final part of the straight. How does that work? Why does that happen?
Well, you obviously have a lot less drag following another car, and that should hopefully give some overtaking here. The back straight is pretty long, always quite far up there as well, like the Toro Rossos, for example.
And then the braking into the hairpin at the end of the straight is quite spectacular.
It is spectacular, hopefully in the race, mainly for the fun of overtaking somebody. We've seen in the last couple of years it is a good overtaking, especially if it rains, but it is more straightforward, at least, than some of the other corners which are more blind.
Thanks for taking the time to jump out of your car and come and talk about the track. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nick Heidfeld with Martin Brundle. So how much is this a Ferrari circuit? Felipe Massa and Ferrari yet to fully show their hand so far this weekend.
Well, from the viewpoint that the straight's very long, and what we saw in Japan, we know that the...
Interestingly enough, it was Nick Heidfeld, who we heard from a moment ago, who was fastest in the warm-up this morning. And his BMW teammate, Robert Kubica, is, of course, the third man in with a shot at this World Championship title. He might be 12 points back, but that's exactly the kind of position that Kimi Raikkonen came through from to win the title a year ago. And Robert Kubica certainly isn't writing off his own chances.
Everybody would like to be in Lewis' position, me and Felipe. I mean, there is nothing better to have advantage and be leader of the championship. But, you know, you have to make sure still that you don't do mistakes, you push as hard as possible and you score as many points as possible. And, you know, until the game is on, you have to try. And I think as Lewis will try, it will be difficult.
We talk about Hamilton and Massa, but it could be Kubica. But how would he have to change his approach over these last 2 races?
Well, I don't think it'll change anything, but, you know, he's been Mr. Consistency all season long. That's why he's just there in the background. The only thing he will do, and I think what the team will do, is all or nothing. You know, he's got to go out there, try and collect 10 points from both Grand Prix, and I think BMW will go aggressive in their strategy, and I think that's maybe being shown in the morning practice and where they sat in the scheme of things.
Yeah, he's got this far by showing consistency and playing the percentages, but he's got to go out there and win races now.
He has, and I think that's also got to be an issue that, you know, the guys of like Massa and Hamilton are going to take into contention, because if he gets up there, Robert Kubica, a high field at the BMW, and he gets in the mix, it could be very costly to those 2 guys who are trying to fight the championship out.
Well, in a few minutes' time, we'll have more on the pressures.
Expectations weigh heavy on the shoulders of the championship challengers here in Shanghai. By Sunday afternoon, it could all be over. So how do you manage those expectations when the pressure's on? Nobody knows better than the men who've already faced that same challenge.
Obviously, you have much more to lose. So any problem in the car or any worry that you have with the team is concerning you much more than before. So it's a stressful weekend, no doubt. Everybody is important, family, friends, and the team as well, to give you the confidence that everything goes right. And obviously, a competitive car. If you are quick in the track, you get the confidence back very quickly.
Sometimes the guy who is behind has nothing to lose anymore, so he is for sure gonna try. Sometimes the guy who is on front, he's looking to really compromise some places and not take the risk as much.
I'm working with somebody together. There's always a trust you need, and you feel so close. Sometimes it's also easy. Without speaking too much, you're giving somebody energy and your best to let to another one feel, hey, I'm with you, you're not alone.
Being under pressure is never a good thing. I mean, some people respond to it well, others not so well. You have a Latin way of looking at things, a British way of looking at things, a Finnish way of looking at things. Like I say, I've only worked with Finns in those situations, both very different. One liked to talk a hell of a lot before he got in the car, and the other one wants to fall asleep. I think it's just important to know the person very well and develop a technique that works for them.
The thing I try and tell myself, and I tell all the guys around, is this is why we're in motor racing. This is our dream. This is our pleasure. It's just trying to do everything that you normally do properly, not to do anything that you wouldn't do, not to make decisions that, not to go in directions that you wouldn't have gone normally, because you know that the way you approached it got you into the position you are now, so you've got to carry on in the same way.
No, it's about minimising mistakes, it's about managing risk, it's about making intelligent decisions with very little information and very, very quickly. And that's where the team come into play.
Some people relish it and love it, and other people find the pressure sometimes overbearing. And it's the same with drivers. And Michael used to go very quiet. He would just go extremely quiet, wouldn't talk about general things, and you could just see he was wasn't tightening up, but he was just getting very intense.
Well, a lot of pressure on Lewis, and in fact the whole McLaren team this weekend. I'm joined now by team boss Ron Dennis. Ron, how is the tension in the camp?
What tension?
So there is none?
No, we're we're quite relaxed actually. We had a tremendous series of practices, and car is exceptionally good here, and nice weather. We're not expecting any complications with the rain, so just keep very focused, very calm. That's the way to do it.
Have you done anything special with Lewis this weekend to try and keep him relaxed, or is it just business as usual?
Well, we have quite an intense team of people that look after both of the drivers, and obviously part of that is their mental condition, how we make sure they get proper sleep, and how we keep them focused. But it's not, it's not a pressured process. It's actually very much the opposite, just keeping them relaxed and very focused on what they have to do.
Thanks, Ron. Good luck in qualifying.
You're welcome. Thank you.
But in terms of the team and in terms of Lewis Hamilton himself, how important is the experience of the Chinese Grand Prix here last year, the damaging experience? Does it actually make them stronger?
I think it's a reflection that he would have thought about several times over the last few months, and especially over the last few days. but he can learn from it. And yeah, he has got a big support team around him, but that team cannot do anything when it comes to those lights going out on Sunday afternoon. We've seen that already. I think, you know, at the end of all of this, Lewis has to be able to just switch off a little bit and just take it in his stride. We all know he can do it. The problem is Lewis doesn't know he can do it yet. And what he doesn't understand is that he's just going to temper it slightly. It's probably the easiest job in the world for him now. He's got the machinery, he's got the ability. He just needs to collect a handful of points and it's done and dusted. But saying that, you're dealing with a very intense person.
But a year ago, it was that tiny little gravel trap at the entrance to the pit lane that really cost him the world championship.
And, you know, these things happen. Lewis Hamilton is a driver who takes things to the limit and beyond. And we've seen it with other past world champions. And I think that is part of the makeup of these guys. They just go the little edge more than what they should do. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong.
OK, the ITV F1 website is the place if you want to add your thoughts on who could win this World Championship, who should win this World Championship. That plus all the F1 stats and all the F1 news and the ITV F1 competition as well.
This weekend's fantastic prize is a trip for two to Australia for the first race of the 2009 Formula One season on the 28th and 29th of March next year. You and a friend will be flown down under, have 4 nights accommodation in a 4-star hotel close to the track, and be gifted 3-day race weekend tickets to enjoy the Grand Prix at the famous Albert Park circuit. So to be with a chance of winning this great prize, just answer this question correctly. Which city currently hosts the Australian Grand Prix? Is it A, Perth, B, Melbourne, or C, Sydney? Here's the number to dial: 09049 596789. Calls cost £1 from a BT landline. Calls from other networks may be higher, and from mobiles will be considerably more. Or you can text F1 followed by your answer of A, B, or C to 63337. Text also costs £1 plus 1 standard network rate message. Digital satellite and cable viewers can enter by pressing the red button now. You can also enter for free at itv.com until 5 p.m. Friday 24th of October. Entrance must be 18 or over. Phone lines close 5 p.m. this coming Tuesday, the 21st of October, and entries made after the closing time won't be counted but may still be charged.
Well, we've been talking about the three-way battle for the Drivers' Championship, as certainly Hamilton and Massa give the impression that they're sort of limping to the finish line. If the title were decided over the last 4 races, Fernando Alonso, winner in Singapore and Japan, will be comfortably champion again. Sebastian Vettel has shown consistency and become a race winner in Monza. Massa and Hamilton have scored just 15 and 14 points respectively. But what exactly is behind the return to winning form of Fernando Alonso and Renault?
Fernando Alonso's confirmed that if he can, he'll try and help Ferrari win the World Championship. And on his recent form, he could well put his Renault into the mix to interfere with McLaren's progress. But how can Renault, who struggled to get out of Q2 a few months ago, suddenly be winning races? It's thanks to a new front wing, which has allowed the engineers to finally understand how to hit the car's sweet spot. The drivers have more confidence and can now push harder. The extra downforce, which all
mechanical setup and weight distribution setup. If you play with these 3 things together, you find a good combination. The car maybe can perform a little bit better, and seems that we keep racing the last 4 or 5 Grand Prix with one specific setup, and it's working fine. So maybe we discovered too late, but it's something.
Renault have also improved their engine. Indeed, engines have been a big story this weekend, with the FIA's Max Mosley effectively admitting that the current freeze on engine development isn't working. At the moment, teams are allowed to change components for cheaper or more reliable ones, but they are adding performance at the same time. So from 2010, Mosley wants standardised engines, and for an independent company like Cosworth to supply a cheap power plant for anyone to use. It's a move that could render engine manufacturers in
one case the piston was reinforced in a manner, and the second the valve undercuts were changed in depth and profile. So theoretically there could be a knock-on performance effect, in our opinion, from those changes.
But back on track, Renault's wins have come at a perfect time. With new car sales down over 25% in Europe, and with the loss of the French Grand Prix this week, there have been serious question marks over Renault's long-term F1 future. But with 2 wins likely to convince Alonso to stay, there's fresh motivation for everyone at Enstone.
Motivation is always there, because I think for any sportsman you never like to taste to lose, you know, and to be worse than the others. So you always want to beat your opponents and want to win races, but you know, sometimes you know that it's impossible. But now, even if we still think that it's impossible, we managed to win 2 Grand Prix, the last 2. So we are extremely happy with that, and we need to keep working, because this is the only way to close even more the gap.
So back-to-back wins for Renault. How much is that good form, opportunism, or that man Alonso?
I think Alonso adds a lot to it. Fantastic driver. I think there's been opportunities, they've made the most of them. But I also feel they're a little bit more powerful in the back.
And Alonso has also said that if the race situation demands, he'll be supporting Felipe Massa, which doesn't come as a great surprise. But how big a factor is that in the next couple of races?
Well, with the present form of Renault, it's a big factor. It really is. And I think, no love lost between Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. We know that. That's historic now. But I think this guy now is on form. He's won the last 2 Grand Prix. Renault is certainly getting stronger by the moment. And I think if he does get into the situation of taking points away from either Massa or Hamilton, and he's gunning for Hamilton at this moment, then, I think that could cause him problems.
Job there for Kovalainen, maybe?
We've been asking the Kovalainen to produce all season long, and I think by his own admission this week he even said, I don't think I've done as good a job as I could have done. So he's got 2 more Grand Prix to step up to the plate.
2 races to go then to decide the championship. Maybe this race in China will decide the championship. But one thing is for sure, there's only 2 Grand Prix left in the Formula 1 career of David Coulthard. And over the last few weeks, he's been talking quite revealingly to Louise about the teams that he's driven for, the drivers he's raced against. And now finally, he talks about his life away from the circuit and what he's learned from one experience in particular.
You were involved in a plane crash in which sadly the pilots were killed, which obviously has a huge impact on your life. Has it changed the way that you look at life ever since?
Yeah, that was a life-changing moment, because until that point I had spent the last 5 years growing as a Grand Prix driver, getting into a winning situation, growing in confidence. Inevitably, when you get a number of things handed to you on a plate, you start to think that that's normal, and there's so much support for a driver from the team, especially at a Grand Prix weekend, to protect you from not having too many intrusions during your weekend, or to set things up. And it really becomes a slightly unreal world in a certain respect. And that the crash that I was involved in, I should never have been on that particular plane. I had a plane which I normally use, which I'd booked for 2 o'clock that day to return from the UK to Monaco. And I woke up in the morning and was impatient, decided I wanted to go in the morning, and another aircraft was organised. And ultimately it didn't matter what time I was getting to Monaco, but it was just getting into that, well, I want to, so therefore I'll have, a slightly spoiled attitude, which I'm sure you've seen in some of the drivers. And anyway, it was a tragic circumstance and a horrible way to get a wake-up call. But as I approached my 30th birthday, I remember very well being back in Monaco that evening, and my day would continue. Okay, I had a few injuries, but my day would continue, and a few days later I'd be racing at the Spanish Grand Prix. And back in the UK, there was 2 families that had lost husbands, fathers, sons. And it's terrible and it's tragic, and I know that happens every single day, but when it's so close to you, to face up to the fact that that could have been my moment, that could have been my last day on earth, and it made me want to change the way I was living my life. And some of those decisions I made in the aftermath of that, I think, were really positive, good decisions. Some of them were not entirely thought through as well as they could have been, but that's the journey of life. And but nonetheless, it was a big wake-up call, and I'm ever thankful that 8 years later I'm sitting here talking to you, and it's given me a whole new appreciation of just what a fantastic opportunity I've been given in my life.
The other big change, of course, in your life is that you're going to become a dad. Your girlfriend Karen is expecting your first child. What are you looking forward to in that? Do you think you're going to be a sort of hands-on, changing nappies kind of dad, or are you going to wait till the kid's a bit older and can run around and have a chat with you?
I'm sure I'll be hands-on. I'm really excited about being a father, and I know that Karen's going to be an amazing mother. And I'm actually feeling quite emotional as we talk about this, because when you see the scans, for me at 37, it's I think a good age to be a father for the first time, and to see this little thing growing in there and to know that you're part of that, I think is just remarkable. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure I'll be hands-on, but I'll leave the main part of the parenting to Karen, because she has a 10-year-old daughter who is very well adjusted and polite, and doesn't misbehave. So I would hate to over-influence over-influence our son, just in case, you know, he takes a few of his father's genes and he might be a little bit wild from time to time.
To change the engine. Guys have done a great job to get it turned around in time, but unfortunately it gives us a 10-place grid penalty. So not an ideal way to start your Saturday, especially when the car's been running well here. But we're confident that David, you know, we need a big weekend from him.
Yeah, so hopefully he'll make it out of Q3. Do you think he can actually break into the top 10, make it into Q3? Q2 and then Q1 rather?
Yeah, DC, he's always gone well around this circuit, so you know, he was quick here in 2005, he was quick here last year, he out-qualified Mark here last year, so you know, we need a big weekend because we're fighting hard in the constructors, and you know, to lose one of the drivers is, with a big grid penalty, is annoying, but you know, we'll be in there fighting, and you know, we need DC to have a good run this afternoon.
Okay, let's hope. Thanks very much.
And fascinating to hear from David Coulthard, Mark. So many driving experiences and so many life experiences as well, and a few more to come. How have you seen DC evolve as a person over the last 15 or so years?
You know, I can remember sitting with DC when he first came into the sport, and actually as a guy who's... He sat actually with myself and Martin Brundle. We had dinner with him one night, and you could see this young man come in. Everything was a little bit new, and he was a little bit, you know, bushy-tailed and bright-eyed. But he's developed into a fantastic racing driver. 13 Grand Prix wins, great achievement. Missed out on going for a World Championship. Maybe could have been a little bit more selfish, but I think that could be applied to a lot of the guys. But ultimately, a great man, and I think there's a lot more left in him to contribute to the sport.
Great to see him go out with two strong performances. Quick thought about the conditions we got for qualifying here today.
A little bit warm, but almost perfect in many ways. No wind really about, but could be advantageous to Ferrari with the tyres, but let's wait and see.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. So qualifying for this Grand Prix of China is just a few minutes away. And in practice yesterday, it was Lewis Hamilton setting the standard in both practice sessions. Can he be the fastest in the battle for a vital pole position? We'll find out in a few minutes' time.